Hey guys, it's Crossroads here. Today I want to talk to you about BMNR, specifically what happens when they hit their 5% goal. Let's take a quick look at this, what this may be in the options that are for sure on the table and what that might mean for us shareholders as well. So first, why am I talking about 5%? Well, we can see right at the beginning of basically every document, every post, you have this phrase right here, the alchemy of 5%. This is something that Tom Lee talks about in great lengths. If you search for this in any document that they have, they mention it, and it's just to try to achieve a 5% stake in the Ethereum network. And we can see from their weekly updates that they have made significant progress. They bought the dip in Ethereum heavily. This posted just today. This, by the way, is not the price that they own it per share, but what it was looking at the time of this post as of September 29th. Of course, we had an updated share count as well with an SEC filing that was fairly recent. But nevertheless, we see that they are actually not quite 2.5, they're not quite halfway there to that 5%, but they're pretty close and in very much a record pace. If we see here, this is BMNR.rocks. It's a nice little portfolio, not a sponsor or anything. I like them to keep track of them in SBET. But you can see this rate of accumulation of Ethereum. And it's accelerating, of course, with the dip happening as well, with that big capital raise that happened. So I think it's more of a question of when, not if, do they hit the 5%, and then what happens next. Now, this is where their strategy is revolved around. It's where they're very much focused on. You can see that with every bit of communication. You can see that with every press release, every time Tom Lee talks about this, and all their actions as well as a company. This is their number one goal. It's their number one focus. There are a couple other things that they're doing, but they will hit this. It may be a thing that they will see even before the end of the year. If not, then likely early next year as well. But if that's a goal, what happens next? Are they just going to say, okay, we got it, guys, we made it, and we're going to do nothing else? Well, I don't think that that's going to happen, but let's assume that does happen for a moment. Now, one of the nice things about Ethereum versus Bitcoin, and I do love Bitcoin as well, but with Ethereum, they have staking. And so if you're a validator, you can stake and self-custody that as well. And as a result, you get a yield of, somewhere around 3%. If you're staking, with somebody like Robinhood, like I do, they take a little bit of that cut as well, but it makes it pretty convenient. So not the biggest deal in the world, but that yield, of course, the higher the price is for Ethereum and also the more that they own of this, it could be generating, like if we're very conservative, we say, okay, we're getting a 3% yield. Ethereum only went up to 5,000, is just kind of holding firm there. And it actually takes them, for whatever reason, a little bit. They hit that 5% goal and they just stay exactly there with no more. They'll be generating close to 200 million per year with very conservative assumptions. Now, what happens if Ethereum does a 10x from here? Then they're generating over $1 billion. It's closer to $1.5 billion than $1 billion in revenue just from staking in a year. Now, there's no guarantees that will happen, but that's a significant source of revenue. So people have thrown out the idea of like, well, maybe that'll be a dividend of some sort or something along those lines. I don't think so, actually. I think BMNR is going to be pretty aggressive. One of those things that I think that they will likely do is continue to buy some Ethereum. At the very least, Ethereum does not have a finite supply like Bitcoin. And as a result, there is always a risk, although not so much these days, because every time there's a transaction that happens, there are some gas fees, and some of that is just burned off. It no longer is in the ecosystem. Yet, nevertheless, there's still a risk. And I think that they'll probably want to be north of that 5% goal. They want to be like at 5.0001% of Ethereum. They might see it even climb to like 6 or 7%. Now, I don't think that it'll ever get to double digits for a couple of reasons. One is that's really hard to do. And the other is it's actually not as healthy for the ecosystem if you start really centralizing instead of having it being very decentralized like it is right now. Now, what else might they do? You are likely aware of this if you're a BMNR shareholder, but they own more than just Ethereum under custody. We can see, of course, their Ethereum that they post every single time, but they post all of their assets. We can see the unencumbered cash. That's what they can use to buy the dip in their stock or in Ethereum. We can see 192 Bitcoin. Now, this was a company that actually had and held its own mining, crypto mining technology. They do, and they have mined for Bitcoin in the past. right now they're maxed out as far as data center capacity. So this is kind of a mining as a service type of business rather than them actually and actively trying to acquire more Bitcoin. But they do have that, and they may acquire more Bitcoin in the future as well, especially once they hit this 5% mark. Don't be surprised if they start going after the Bitcoin market as well. Now, we can see also here that they own some 8Co. Now, this is up massively from when they first ended up taking a small stake in the WorldCoin company there, or the asset rather. But they refer to this as a moonshot. And I wouldn't be surprised if they end up also going after more moonshots. Now, one unique thing about BMNR, beyond it just holding multiple different assets in its digital asset treasury, is it's right there in the SEC filings as well. That they, in essence, they said that they can, at their own discretion, they use the word discretion quite a bit of times, that basically differentiate what's actually in their model. But the nice thing is we have this SEC filing that kind of gives a fresh understanding of this. Let me take you through this because this gives some hints in the future. All right. So this, by the way, is related to the shelf offering that they gave, not shelf offering, but the offering that they gave of some of their shares and the warrants as well last week. And so a lot of this is not new, but it's good to go over as well, especially if you've not seen it before. We are a digital asset and blockchain technology company that engages in the production or mining of Bitcoin and have recently initiated an Ethereum treasury strategy. And so we can see that their business strategy is still Bitcoin centric. That's not their focus over the short term. And so I expect that they will at some point acquire more Bitcoin, whether through Bitcoin mining or from proceeds of capital raising transactions. We now intend to accumulate ETH with respect to our treasury operations. And then from time to time, they're like, hey, we'll be flexible in what we do. So we can see right here how they relate to Bitcoin holdings. These are long-term holdings. Again, I think BMNR will, of course, hit that 5% figure, and then we'll continue to diversify even as they accumulate a bit more ETH as well. This is a relatively small amount of Bitcoin, but don't be surprised to see that larger. And they also talk about their mining as a service here too. But this right here is where they're focused. We view our Ethereum treasury operations as a next phase of our business growth. Our treasury strategy will be focused on engaging in opportunity-seeking activities with the goal of increasing the amount of ETH in the treasury. And then here we go, including through staking, restaking, liquid staking, and other decentralized finance activities. So that's something that they're working on. We haven't heard too much more on staking. I'm sure that they're weighing out those options. But I think that this right here, and we'll actually show you another indicator here in just a moment, also shows what they might consider doing once they hit that 5 to 6% amount. They may say, you know what, we are using some sort of liquid staking, proprietary technology. It's working really well. We love the company we're doing with. Why don't we just go out and buy this company as well? Don't be surprised if they do that, especially if they see what they're offering as very accretive to the Ethereum ecosystem, which is something that they very much care about. And then they also say here, Ethereum is currently our primary treasury reserve asset, and we expect that ETH will serve as our primary treasury reserve asset in the future. However, we continue to monitor market conditions in determining this. So even there, they have the flexibility to move away from that, and we'll see what that looks like when they actually do that. Now, another indicator that it looks like that they may be open to doing some sort of acquisition is we can see this right here under the use of proceeds. Again, this is for the, well, that's the outstanding, but this is for the common stock that they offered last week, as well as the warrants. They say we may use the net proceeds from this offering, if any, and some of this is just kind of general language, but I think it's important for general corporate purposes, including, among other things, working capital, pursuit of our Ethereum strategy, the purchase of income-generating assets that grow our business. That's interesting. The purchase of income-generating assets to grow our business. And we can also see right here, we may also use such proceeds to fund acquisitions of businesses, assets, or technologies that complement our current business. So that doesn't mean necessarily that they're using this money right here for this purpose, but they want to maintain flexibility. Now, there are two kinds of acquisitions that they are certainly open to. One of those specifically is an acquisition of other digital asset treasuries. In fact, in their previous not earnings slide deck, but investor relations slide deck that they had back in August, when they deployed their strategy, they actually talk about this directly as well. And so we can see that on this slide, the 5 ways to increase ETH per share they have right here. Acquire digital asset treasury, trading at close to NAV of ETH held. This fueled, by the way, speculation last week that ETHZilla was in the process of being acquired, partly because of some radio silence on their part, partly because there was a golden parachute clause written in to one of their SEC filings that they issued, which sometimes is a sign that an acquisition is underway. I think that's more defensive than anything, and they realize that at some point, if their MNAV continues to trade underwater, that they will actually look for maybe an acquisition at that point or to be acquired. I think it's a lot too early yet. This is probably something that's more of a next year type of thing, maybe even like more than 12 months out. Nevertheless, they're open to that kind of acquisition, but also the language there in the SEC filing did not limit them specifically to only digital asset treasury acquisitions, but again, anything that really helps fund their business and complements their current technology. That again could be liquid staking. They do talk about lending as well. And so if they want to get into crypto lending of some form, they may see that it's accretive to actually buy one of those businesses. Now, I don't think that these necessarily would be very large transactions, but that's something that we need to realize is a good bit of a possibility. So in the long term, again, going back to Bitcoin, they are very interested. They say in the long term, we plan to build data centers for our miners because we believe the total cost for operating the miners will be less. They also say we view the Bitcoin holdings as long-term holdings. And they mentioned that a number of times that they're open to doing this through mining as well. And so this is, again, part of their strategy that they will continue to own and operate this mining business, that they will acquire Bitcoin here and there. But the priority is just getting Ethereum up, of course, to that 5%. So between generating, of course, the yield from having that staked, between expanding into Bitcoin operations and doing some acquisitions as far as technology, I think that the other thing that they may engage in is more moonshot projects as well. Now, it doesn't mention moonshots in the SEC filing itself directly, but this is something that Tom Lee talks about constantly. And you can even see it right there, again, going again back into that August breakdown of what the ecosystem looks like and where Ethereum is headed, not so much in price or as far as ownership, but as far as the direction that the company is going. Take a look at this. They say Wall Street to innovate on the blockchain in the next 10 to 15 years. And some of these are a lot further out, like proof of humanity. Again, that's where Orbs comes in, verifying agentic AI. Microtransactions is one of these things that could fall anywhere in here, probably under stable coins. But there are a lot of growth vectors on Ethereum, and yet institutions taking this seriously and building on it, plus the regulation that we're having, even though Ethereum is not new, taking this seriously as digital rails for the future is pretty new at this scale. And so I wouldn't be surprised if there are some protocols, maybe it's a level 2 asset that's out there that's doing some amazing things on Ethereum. Maybe it's some sort of protocol that someone develops or some underlying technology that takes advantage of the Ethereum ecosystem. I think that they'll also invest some into moonshot projects like that as well. And since Tom Lee is at the helm of this, that actually makes me very happy as an investor. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments. How soon do you think it will be until they hit that 5% goal? And what do you think the first thing is that they'll do once they hit that, other than just celebrate, of course? Let me know in the comments. As always, thank you for watching, commenting, and subscribing. And until next time, happy investing.